right. So let's quickly now jump into the session. We have the panel discussion for day two, focusing on digital revolution in the era of COVID. I would like to quickly introduce Mr. Roman Matthew, the director of AmRich International, to give a couple of messages here.
As the director of AlMashani, I would like to thank and welcome all the honorable panelists. Mr. Abdallah Ayoub, Head of Automation ADNOC Gas Processing, Mr. Ahmed AlMashani, Head of Control and Automation Feed Office, Petroleum Development Oman, Mr. VR Harindran, Head of Instrument Pengerang Refining Company, Mr. Dawood Fatani, Engineering Group Leader Saudi Aramco, Mr. Tahir Saleem, Senior Security Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, and our moderator, Mr. Philip Black, Global Emerging Solutions Lead, Digital and Technology Wood. Thank you very much to all of you for sparing your valuable time and making yourselves available for this session to share your valuable insights for the industry with all the attendees of the event. AlRich is honored to have such an expert panel on digital transformation and automation. And I'm sure the audience will also definitely gain from your expertise. I wish a fruitful and stimulating discussion for all. Thank you.
Wonderful. There were some kind words, Roman. Thank you so much for sharing this as well. Now, quickly, I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Philip, who would introduce each and every panelist, and then we quickly go into 10 minutes or 5 minutes presentation by Wood, and then we actively go into the discussion regarding this session. Thank you, Philip. I give over the session to you.
Thank you very much. Get everything set up here, make sure the screen, everything can get shared. Happy to join from Houston, where it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but I've had some coffee, so I'm wide awake. Hopefully I don't drop off here. If I start nodding off, I need someone to virtually, poke me to keep me going. But I'm happy to be here, happy to have a chance to talk about the digital revolution, especially in the age of COVID, and how the different industries are adjusting and actually the exciting changes that will happen based from this bad experience we've all had to go through. So we have a good group. My name is, as was mentioned, my name is Philip Black. I'm the Global Emerging Solutions Lead of Wood. I work within the Digital and Technology Group, specifically around how to use the different emerging solutions and the technology that Wood provides and partners with companies to solve problems within the industry. Wood is a global company with approximately 40,000 people. We have offices worldwide, and we focus on all the different aspects from the design of any asset to the construction and building of any asset, as well as to the continued operation and asset management of the different assets for the teams. So having said that, I'm now going to introduce the different panelists we have on our discussion. First, we have Ahmed. Ahmed, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. Very glad to be part of this esteemed conference. So my name is Ahmed AlMashani. I am from Control Automation Engineer, heading a Control Automation team in PDO, in Feed Office. I have more than 18 years of experience. I'm very lucky that I had gone through most of the project phases that's starting from concept, selection, reporting, and phases for design, front-end engineering design, and detailed design, construction, support, procurement, commissioning, and startup. All these evolving around the control automation, starting from instrumentation, field instrumentation, control systems by different safeguarding systems as well, fire and gas detection systems. considering all the project phases, been through these different assurance reviews with different projects like design review, hazards, alarm rationalization, fire gas mapping, and other IBF methodology. So basically what we do in feed office, we do engineering for almost 20% of the projects that we run in petroleum development of Oman. Ranging from small to medium and also big projects. Yeah, so yeah, this all about me. Very keen and glad to be part of this conference and to have a very interesting discussion with the panelists and the audience as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll move to Tahir. Tahir, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you very much for everybody to join and to the organizers as well. Happy to be a part of this event. So I come from the power sector, obviously. And so the background is obviously on purpose, just to remind everybody. Now, my role is specifically on securing the operational technology elements of a power system. So in this case, I'm involved in the designing, engineering, specification, management, as well as assisting the commissioning and the rollout of security controls that are embedded within the power substation. So this is the transmission side of our network. Me and my team have actually achieved quite a bit, I would say. We've kind of set the benchmark within the region for embedding these cybersecurity controls and getting our vendors on board. So that was obviously one of the biggest challenge. Happy to share more details on how COVID situation has brought about a change in that. So that's really, in summary, all about me, and we'll be sharing more details as we get into it. Thank you.
All right. Next we have Mr. Harindran, or as he says, he goes by Harry. Harry, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, Dubai. I'm trying to switch on my video. I'm on the handphone now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm trying to switch on my video on the handphone, but I'm having some problem on that. Yes, that's me. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Harindran, or you can call me Harry. I'm the head of instruments in the petrochemical refinery project, PRF Chem. This is a $28 billion integrated project by Petronas, and the operator is a joint venture between Petronas and Saudi Aramco. So I've been involved, a bit of background on myself. I've been roughly about 35 years in the oil and gas industry, doing petrochemical instrument engineering to LNG to offshore. And I got involved with this project 10 years ago, from the basic conceptual design right up to the feed into detailed engineering, into construction, commissioning. So now we are in the commissioning phase of this project. So Petronas has assigned me to get this plant up and running. So that's a brief background. And with these interesting times of COVID, there's definitely more challenges for us. So should be an interesting discussion this afternoon on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, we have Mr. Dawood. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for introducing us in this interesting conference. My name is Dawood Fatani from Saudi Aramco. I've been working for Aramco for 20 years in instrumentation and process control and flow measurement systems. And we are doing this all type of engineering, design, construction, commissioning, and to support this oil and gas industry of Saudi Aramco. Also now Saudi Aramco is going now for the clean energy producing now. We are converting for the clean energy. So this type of revolution is really interesting and will help us a lot in moving fast to convert for the clean energy. And back to you, Philip. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. As we all know, there's been a lot of changes that have happened due to COVID. I wanted to start by sharing quickly a few things that we've been working and how we've adapted at Wood. I think the most interesting aspect in terms of for the employees has been simply the return to work. How can companies know and help their employees feel safe when it comes to going back to the office? We have a lot of different groups who have been working through the pandemic and have been looking at different, actually going to site, and a lot of you as well, on the other panelists have been working on site. But for those of us who are still working from home, what does it take to go back to the office safely? We've done a lot of rethinking our layouts of our office, and before we had very much traditional workspace, work areas, but now with they've been doing a lot of changing in terms of the type of layouts, and so now we're moving to much more of an open office with flexible workspaces. You kind of almost effectively come in and sign up by each day on what desk you'll take. That's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see hopefully next year as we return back to the office how that will work. When it comes to also in terms of how the Wood has had to adapt due to COVID, has been, I would say, a much more transition to things like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, SharePoint, instead of just having a lot of different shared drives where we send files around. So it's really helped us and consolidate our IT infrastructure and give a more unified platform for collaborating across the different groups, across the different geographies, and across the different sectors. We've done a lot of work in terms of helping clients in projects adapting. I think one of the most interesting aspects that has been, I would say, the transition to virtual FAT, where we effectively have almost a cameraman or camera person walking around and actually connecting via remote technologies to the different workstations within the staging area or where we're setting up a control system or automation network. And having actually the camera go up there and do the checkouts in terms of the machines, the serial numbers, the information, as well as doing the different loop checks. Additionally, we've done a lot of work helping our clients in terms of taking that, not just the connected cameras, phones, augmented reality, but taking it to our clients as well in terms of doing, we call it the connected worker program. And so that has been sending the information through tablets, through sometimes rugged headsets, sometimes just through standard camera phones, to allow effectively the expertise that's anywhere in the world to be able to be connected to an on-site facility for things like safety inspections or analysis after incidents happen as well. We've been also doing a lot more of using drones for inspection. So not having to have people get out there, get on maybe a scaffold or a ladder or a lift, but actually being able to start using drones to fly around, do that inspection, take the video, and then using the different machine learning even to determine whether or not there's fatigue or wear on any of the equipment. Having said that, it's been a very interesting transition, I guess, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the net result will be in terms of the changes that will continue throughout the time period from this transition. And that's really kind of one of one of the things I'd like to focus on, and we've been talking amongst ourselves, the panelists, how this will impact. And so this is kind of the area that we're looking to share with you today. So having said that, I'm going to start with the questions that we've come up with. I want to encourage any of the attendees as we go along to put your questions in the chat, and we will work to integrate those questions and that discussion. We want to make this session as interactive as possible, and so that you get the most benefit you can out of it. The first question I'd like to pose to the panelists is, what is an example of how your company or your industry has adapted to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic? Ahmed?
Yeah, thank you, Philip, for the introduction and sharing also your experience on that. In fact, as most of the industry, so we are, from where I come from, is we are doing engineering. So the basic things what we were looking for is to keep business going. So that is, I think it is the same for most of us, is keep things going, because the most important thing that is that we are not allowed, or there is a lot of constraints coming back to the offices using the infrastructure that we used to have, as not to mention that we as an engineering office, we used to deal with drawings, we used to deal with the design, meeting each other, a lot of clarifications, meeting the clients as opposed to other departments when I mentioned client. So that was a very difficult situation, but luckily, and it all goes to the leadership, to be honest, and I kept even saying the same with my colleagues, that we didn't have had the leadership and the faith from the system that we are going with the remote, utilizing for instance, luckily, like 2 years back or even more, that we had Skype for Business that is installed as a mandatory, one of the mechanisms to connect. However, it was very less used, but when we had this pandemic, I think everybody has to go through that experience, learning curve, how to connect through such virtual Zoom and like what we are using now. And I think that has happened very rapidly. The team has exchanged a lot of information using this virtual collaborative environments, and not to mention it, how we also with the vendors. Basically, we had to go through that experience as most of us. It wasn't that easy, but the company kept pushing forward to keep that connection, allowed certain learning curve and training, for the team to just keep connected. So basically going through virtual meetings, virtual inspection, as you mentioned, also some of the projects, they were in the middle of FAT. So we had to trust the vendor and get their support as well. So more digital, so a lot of initiatives were seen as a difficult to use. Like luckily in the company, we had a scheme called Maktabi. And the intention of that is to have a work-life balance for people to be allowed to work from home. And that has been piloted and approved in the company. And that was, fortunately, was one of the targets that we were aiming for this year, to get some people also going to the Maktabi to see and that experience. And luckily, I was a focal point as well. So in a matter of, I don't know, it's just a few weeks, the whole office went for Maktabi. So where we had very much doubt whether that is going to work. whether the employees will be focused. But that resilience and that really push that been backed up by the management and the leadership team, I think we managed to adapt. And yeah, so they were at the mercy of technology, making sure that we are adapting. But that has really helped us a lot, having that infrastructure. And of course, we had to gear up and bridge the gap on our IT infrastructure and also learning system. So yeah, so basically that's how we had to do, and I think we are moving forward in the same direction, improving, and yeah, and I think we had a lot of success stories in this regard. Thank you.
All right, good, very good. Harry, how has your industry had to adapt, especially since I think you're on site right now, and you've been on site obviously throughout all the different phases.
Right. So if you look back at about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a big drive in the industry about digitalization. And most of it was driven by the ICT, the IT folks in the department trying to push digitalization across the companies. And if you look back until probably about 2 years ago, I think the take-up of digitalization across the industry was probably about 40%, 50%. There's a very strong resistance in taking up digitalization. So if you ask today, who has driven digitalization across the industry, I think the word will come out as COVID-19 is the one that's driven digitalization. Because you had no choice. So now we had no choice, and you have to do things out of the box. Previously, we all said, I mean, we are all in the industry for so many years, and when you talk about FAT, remote FAT and all that, it was just total no. There's no such thing as a remote FAT. This is what the things that they were trying to push back in 4 or 5 years ago. But today, you don't have a choice, but you have to accept things like remote FAT. Coming back to my project that is going on now, we had a big challenge because we had a lot of foreign expertise on site from various countries, all the way from Japan, China, Spain, UK, US. And when the pandemic came in, and the first thing, obviously, all these expats, all this external expertise were recalled back to the home countries. And they had to leave very fast because everywhere, all the countries were going into lockdown. So we had a challenge on site. How do we continue commissioning? So we started looking at things like how to use remote laptop, explosion-proof not remote laptop, but remote handhelds, similar to iPads, but these are all explosion-proof remote tablets. So the fortunate thing about my project is that what we did at the very beginning of the project design was to incorporate pervasive Wi-Fi. That means the whole plant has got Wi-Fi already installed. So that enables all these digital tools to easily come in. And it's separated out from the OT network. It's entirely on the enterprise network. So it doesn't interfere with the cybersecurity. So we started working on utilizing remote handhelds to start doing commissioning with support from the OEMs. On the site itself, we had very strong health controls in place. People entering, which were now coming towards more the local staff entering. We had questioners asking where they were from. If they were from a particularly high-risk areas, then we obviously don't let them in or give them quarantine for 14 days and all that. And on top of that, on site, we had split working teams. So we try and manage the team such that the same expertise was split into two, so they work on different areas of the plant. They don't mix. So it's in the event that something did happen on a COVID case, at least we had another team to work and have this first team on quarantine or on home quarantine. I'm fortunate that we are on this side that so far to date, we have had suspected cases, but no real cases. So I think all these measures that we put in place in terms of the health health checks and all the split working teams, the SOPs we put in place, making sure that we have 1 meter different distance between personnel working at site. We stopped all the meetings with people. Everything went on to remote meetings. So even if we're all in the office, but we don't go into the meeting room, we are all working from our office and having remote meetings. So these are the kind of things that we put in place that has helped us control the COVID situation at site while we're doing this commissioning. To be honest, yes, the commissioning has been delayed because, yeah, everything takes a bit longer. But we have now put that into the plan, and as far as the revised plan is concerned, we are on track to get this commission next year, early next year. So over to you, Philip.
I'm interested, you mentioned in terms of the putting Wi-Fi pervasively throughout the entire plant. And actually, I guess while everything was in construction with all the equipment, has the signal been good? I mean, were they, I guess, able to put enough access points to give good coverage despite all the different equipment being around, or have there been issues with that Wi-Fi that the IT group has had to overcome?
So what we did was one of the things that we did, this being a new project, we were able to do a lot of things remotely and digitally. When we started this project, it was with digitalization in mind. So we had the entire plant on a 3D model. So from there, we were able to access where were the obstructions, where were the areas to put in the right access point. So we were able to do the Wi-Fi topology correctly and put in the access points at the right places. Obviously, when you have tall structures, tall columns, they would block the Wi-Fi reception. So we were able to organize that and look at that through the 3D modeling and put in the right access points at the right places. So to answer your question, yes, now we have basically 100% coverage across the plant at any point, at any place on the site.
Okay, good. That's very impressive. I know it's been, I'm sure a lot of different groups have learned how to do Wi-Fi much more thoroughly because it's always been spotty, you know, and it's always the expectation was that it had to be spotty, but it sounds like you've been able to overcome that and figure out what it takes to do it right and to get that pervasive signal. Tahir.
And it's really fortunate that we put that in.
Go ahead. Okay, you said it's really fortunate that you put it in. Yes, definitely. Tahir.
Yeah, because.
I think you're breaking up, Harry. So sorry.
Right. Now, in our case, you know, we've been kind of lucky, I would say, because we have been planning this whole remote working for quite a bit of time. And for the last 3 years, from a cybersecurity perspective, we've actually building capability to allow interactive remote access into the core OT environment. And this is something which we have been progressively approaching, and that kind of has worked very well for us. But just to paint the bigger picture, we used to do inspections of equipment for pre-qualification purposes. For example, the gas insulated switchgear, and people would fly out there and you know, into these factories, and they would spend at least a week to go through that inspection and then certifying certain products. Now, in our case now, what's going on is we're doing that remotely. So the pre-qualification takes place remotely, and you know, we're kind of looking at the housing assembly, the bushing of these switch gears, and it's not just the primary equipment. Now this falls across the board. We're looking at now cybersecurity related elements remotely. We're looking at undertaking factory acceptance tests remotely, obviously, as well. And that extends now onto the site acceptance and the commissioning process as well. Obviously, we now have restrictions in how many people can actually be allowed to be within a certain geographical area. So there are restrictions on that. We have a 2-meter restriction in terms of maintaining that distance. So we are now providing a hybrid approach wherein certain people are at our control center side in the security, and then certain people are on site, and then the field crew is completely isolated from the people that actually come into the offices. You know, there's a segregation there, and obviously they're monitored, and if there's any sign of any symptoms, then those are reported and actions taken accordingly. So that's from a project perspective. From an operational perspective, a maintenance perspective, we obviously are operating and maintaining the grid itself. And within the control room, we now have segregation in terms of teams. We have opened up additional locations wherein control room staff can actually operate from. So it's a whole bunch of different things going on from a maintenance perspective. Remote maintenance is the new buzzword now. So we have securely provisioned access for teams to be able to undertake the activities that they would do on site. And here, I would say cybersecurity has become an enabler. And so for all the last 3 years that we've been putting in the capability to have these security controls has finally starting to pay off. We didn't expect this to happen so rapidly, but we're now starting to see the rest of the business taking advantage of all these services that we've been putting in. And remote access is a big thing. And now, how has it changed us? Moving forward, this is the new normal. So there is no going back for us. And it has been accepted and endorsed at the highest levels of the management. And overall, we found that we are actually more efficient in this approach. I mean, our project lead time has effectively been reduced in certain areas. The cost savings is tremendous. I mean, for things like voltage regulator programming and setting management, we are able to do that remotely as well. So we're kind of looking at things which required specialized experts to come on site, and schedule internal resources to be allocated to support that activity, and now we're doing it remotely. So the benefits that have been realized are tremendous, and this is all part of our obviously the higher planning that's taken place within the organization, and the DEWA in particular has been planning this for quite a bit, and this situation, the pandemic, has simply acted as a catalyst to accelerate the deployment of these digital technologies. And now we have a roadmap for the next 5 years that's currently being built on how to continue the momentum. Since this is the new normal, how do we actually extend the digitization across to all of our processes so we can effectively either completely eliminate the need for on-site presence for certain areas, or minimize it as much as possible. Over to you, Philip.
All right, thank you. Yes, I imagine working in cybersecurity has been very challenging because, again, the whole what people think of in terms of cybersecurity is lock down, lock down everything, prevent access, but with your role in cybersecurity, I'm sure it's been very challenging because you don't have the option to lock down. You have to open up and open up safely and securely.
Exactly, and that's the key here because if you look at the traditional approach to cybersecurity, it's all about no, you cannot remotely access, no, you cannot get into the substation remotely. Simply, no, no, and then how do you actually enable? How do you actually enable the process to take place? How do you actually allow remote maintenance, wherein the people themselves cannot go on site due to these restrictions, and then how do you contain the interactions between people, external stakeholders, internal staff members. So this now essentially becomes a way to safely allow for operations to continue without having to worry about the risks of the pandemic itself. Yes, I mean there are certain areas which we still need to have physical inspection, but we are reducing that as much as possible as well. We are using drones, for example, for inspecting the transmission towers, the lines. So all that thing is happening now. But now we've supplemented that by securely transmitting that information across to stakeholders that need access to it. Now, cybersecurity traditionally has been seen, even within our organization, traditionally been seen as an obstructor of operational process, because we have to maintain compliance. We have regulations that we need to report into. Internally within the organization, we have stringent security requirements that we need to demonstrate compliance to. So how do you make all of that happen and still allow some of the services that are traditionally viewed as risky? And that's the challenge in the role I'm in right now. But we have been able to successfully overcome those challenges and to demonstrate that we're actually there to make things happen rather than stop those things.
Thank you. Dawood, how is ARAMCO adapted to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic?
Yes, Philip, yeah, thank you. At the beginning of this pandemic this year, as following the WHO instructions and requirements, Saudi Aramco, as one part of this Saudi Arabia part, we contribute in protecting the main core of our human resources in Saudi Aramco. We provide all kind of protection for make the distance between each others, for the avoiding all the face-to-face meetings. All kinds of these instructions came from the WHO. We implemented on time. So, as I told you, as one of the new aspects for Saudi Aramco is to produce more of the clean energy. So we created some of initiatives to move on these all challenges of the pandemic by creating some apps for to move all these instead of this paperworks or face-to-face daily works. So for these apps, it helps us in protecting our people, our human resources, in getting this infected by this COVID-19. Also, one of our other initiatives to provide more CCTVs in monitoring all our operation in our gas plants, refineries, terminals, distribution plants. For these CCTVs, it came with also of the concept of the machine learnings also as well, to make this CCTVs like smart equipment and devices. Over the curfew time at the beginning of this COVID-19 issue at this beginning of this year, we get succeeded in not to stop our production, our main core of business of producing, transporting the oil and gas to all our customers among the world as well. So we get succeeded in put all aspects in place, protecting our human resources from this COVID-19 and implementing all type of cyber security, plus continuing doing our business of producing and transporting the oil and gas to our customers. Back to you, Philip.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very interesting to see how all the different groups, the similarities, the things that the companies, no matter what sector you're operating in, have had to make some changes. After, obviously we have news that hopefully, looks like the vaccines are underway and in deployment. What the next topic I'd like to address is what types of activities do you think will be permanently changed, and what will go back to how it was done before? Specifically, because we all talk about the new normal, so I guess it's kind of trying to visualize what this new normal will be. Hopefully, it will be the best of both. It'll be the best of the digital, best of the remote, as well as the best of the face-to-face and the benefits from that. I know, for example, it's nice that I don't have to travel so much to be able to talk to a wide, globally distributed group of audience, but I definitely do miss the after the conference, during the breaks, being able to talk one-on-one with the different people and the different companies at the conferences. So in your minds, what type of operational activities will be permanently changed after the pandemic has been resolved? We'll start again with Ahmed.
Yeah, Philip, thank you. I think that's a very important question that we should address, because setting the scenes for post-pandemic, I'm not sure whether it's going to be very quick, but I think we are in the middle of the issue. And again, any challenge, there is always an opportunity to improve. I think, in my view, definitely these meetings which we had to have, the permanent ones, that like with side teams, like with our vendors, with our even colleagues from different specialties, specialization and expertise, that has to be, that's going to be virtual. So face-to-face meeting, especially if somebody's going to travel, I think that's not going to be a norm anymore. So the norm, the new norm, the things that's going to be as an activity, scheduling a meeting. But this has also to improve in terms of some procedures has also to be been there, but I think to improve in terms of the quality and how to probably get more tools and I would say probably apps or something to help that keep it to be kept going and improved as well, as opposed to the face-to-face. Definitely remote operations and remote access that and database based design. It's like what we do for instrumentation. We have smart tools and smart plant instrumentation that migration to that's already started and it's been there. It's our norm, but of course that is emphasis on that. So many things that as we were talking about as an ideas, now that has been accelerated and put as a must, as a mandatory in the era of COVID that has evolved. Of course, paper reduction, as mentioned by Dawood, I think that was one of the main things that because we have responsibility towards the environment, responsibility towards other species also living in this universe. So that was one of the ideas that has been accelerated during this COVID, is for assurance reviews, like we have design review, IPF, HAZOP and other hazard and other also process safety related assurance reviews. We used to have those with a lot of printouts, a lot of discussion. That's going to be all the time. I think from now on it's going to be as a virtual also meetings. Working pattern, I don't think it's going to change. Working from home is going to be the new norm. At least if it's not permanently full-time, there are going to be cycles, because I think the companies that they realize the importance and of course we have to cope up as supposed to do work-life balance, how to make sure that we have a nice spot at home to work. Yeah. So these kind of things, that's going to be there permanent. Now, as I mentioned, now it's probably going to complete now a year or so, or nearly a year from the start of this pandemic. Now the intent of all this digitalization, remote access, all these nice design things, they were like ideas had been adopted and assembled. So assembled probably installations. Now we have a legacy control systems and all that. The new norm now, strategies, philosophies, they will be pouring into looking in the future of the remote access and remote. So opening up to the international standard so that everybody speaks the same language. So understanding. So they want to be, there will be a very less of company specific standards in my view, because you won't have that face-to-face discussion to understand and all that. So it will be easy to speak the same language so that remote discussions and that will be with a minimum effort we require to convince and get things around. And also if there is a new initiatives and things will be also on international standards. So these remote technologies and all that, if we need to adapt, we need to change the way we're working. So I think that's more towards to globalization, and I think that is going to be, so we are transforming all the way to the new norm, looking towards like this virtual conference now we have. That's what we didn't have had happen, and of course you traveling from Houston and from around the globe, it wouldn't be that as easy as it is now. And yeah, so I think that is what I want to say about the working norms in the future. Thank you. Back to you, Philip.
Great. I completely agree. The conferences will be permanently. Hopefully we'll have a mix of in-person and virtual to get the kind of best of the human interaction and the networking, as well as the increased accessibility to experts from all over the world, no matter where they are, and no matter whether they can travel or not. Harry, what do you think? Type of operations will be permanently changed?
I will agree with Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Tahir. Things like face-to-face meetings, I think that's going to be the thing of the past. We have daily operations meeting, which we now do remotely. So these kind of things I think will continue on, because things like doing operational meetings, doing HAZOPs with a big team of people in the room, I think that's going to be a thing of the past, because now we are managing it well with remote meetings. And we find that it's much more efficient. Things like remote access is also going to be a thing of a permanent thing. So one of the things that we're also seeing now is probably we're going to incur less costs with OEMs coming on site, things like going for FAT. So there'll be an overall cost reduction and an overall reduction in the cost of doing business. So we see that is going to be the new norm, and I do not think that whatever we have practiced now, and if it works, it's going to stay there as permanent. So we're going to have things like e-permit, electronic work permits, electronic bypasses, approvals, all these things can be done electronically. We don't need to have a large meeting with a large load of people. So I think we will see, unfortunately, out of this, we will also see a reduction in workforce, because you don't need so many people to be at site. So I think that is also going to be the downside of this. But that will change into more technology-savvy people coming on. So we will see a different set of skills coming in. Things like people who have got the capability to do remote maintenance, for example, they'll be in a much more higher in demand. People who are able to access and diagnose remotely problems, understand the data that's coming out from all the smart instrumentation, that will have a bigger impact to the industry compared to for example, a normal technician who goes down to the field and does his calibrations and diagnosis with his multimeter. I think that all that is going to change. It's going to be a thing of the past. It's going to be more remote access, remote maintenance, ability to analyze data and do diagnostics, predictive, prescriptive diagnostics. That is going to be the future, and that's how it's going to move. Over to you, Philip.
Yes, exactly. Dawood, what types of permanent changes do you see happening?
Yeah, for sure, I agree with my colleagues. We will continue working as separate and remotely. Also, there is another initiative came up for the, as mentioned by Harindran, for the handheld helmets. This is for the to reduce these contacts with others, and also for the continuous operation. As as I mentioned before, this is CCTV cameras will cover all Aramco plants now. So the continuous operation and monitoring will be all remotely and on continuous basis. This will reduce the contacts of people as being done in the near past. Also, we have for the regular meetings, it will be replaced by the virtual meetings all the time. I think we will continue on this and no more for face-to-face meeting anymore. This actually this not only will protect the people from infection. This will avoid. This will save some costs also of traveling, of going far to other location. Just sit on your office and do your business virtually. This will actually will significantly save some costs. Also, we have in Aramco other initiative. Can I recall it? I don't recall it actually, Philip. Back to you, Philip.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Tahir, what permanent changes will result, especially from the cybersecurity perspective?
Yeah, I think like I was mentioning earlier, there are certain things which are the new normal for us. So remote inspections, the remote verification of equipment functionality, those kind of things are now permanent. Now, in support of some of those changes that have now taken place, now we're looking at how do we streamline all these processes. So say, for example, there's a meeting that took place during the remote inspection. Now, the minutes of meeting are being transformed to electronic format, a digitized format by one of the corporate apps we have. And any entry into that can become accessible to all the other process related workflows. So now, obviously, paper is eliminated, and we have actually been working on that for quite a few years now. In fact, majority of our environment is paperless, and we have apps that pretty much are used for everything we do. So I foresee, some kind of a tighter integration between all these remote activities, remote processes, wherein information becomes key. And this information or this data is now being looked at to be leveraged for additional business intelligence. So essentially, this may affect some of the macro indicators that the organizational stakeholders view from the top. So we're looking at how we can have additional cost savings. And this is the direction we're heading. So this is now essentially permanent, because now that the organization has realized that most of the activities can be done remotely for us. So let's look at how we can have better resource optimization by leveraging the data we are now collecting. So we, for example, know how many people actually utilize some of the remote services. and how much time do they spend, and exactly what are some of the activities, because we are monitoring these activities, and this data is accessible to certain stakeholders. So this can also be leveraged for other purposes like training. Now, earlier, we had to send people out to specialized centers, and then it would affect the productivity levels for teams. But now, when we're doing a remote inspection or remote verification, we can have multiple people connected for shorter periods, and they can learn. And at the same time, some of the learnings that have been arrived at from other processes can be accumulated into one learning platform. So those are some of the high level changes that are bound to happen now. So effectively, what we're getting is a more upskilled workforce, and data and information is easily accessible to the organization to make newer business decisions. And this essentially will produce a new, possibly for us at least, a new way of working. And we're already looking at that. We're already exploring. In fact, just recently we started drafting new specifications for our substations. And within that, we are now able to demonstrate substantial cost saving. And essentially, this whole process now, this whole pandemic situation has allowed us to think in a different way, think out of the box, apply innovation, be creative in how we can improve certain processes. And this is bound to continue. And so it's going to essentially drive a new cultural transformation. It's not just digital transformation. Now people are thinking differently in general. People are more innovative. People are submitting their ideas. And within DEWA, we have an innovation platform we call Afkari. And it is meant to nurture people's ideas, develop them, and then to have them implemented, and obviously award people whose ideas have been instrumental in bringing about the change. So have just going through all of those ideas. I mean, I'm amazed personally that people are actually submitting ideas for cybersecurity, and they've got nothing to do with cybersecurity. And they're technicians out working in the field, and they're providing suggestions on cybersecurity. Obviously, that does reflect a high level of awareness, but at the same time, it shows that people are now passionate about sharing their ideas. So this is essentially going to be the new normal. Now, what I personally would see as in things rolling back, once we get out of this situation, I personally would still love to have that face-to-face interaction for certain areas, because I think we as humans will have to socialize face-to-face. In person socializing is essential for us as humans. While we're doing this session, we can't really apply that personal flair to the event itself. During breaks, people discuss ideas that they can't, discuss in a more broader public platform. So conferences and all, personally, I would see like a hybrid approach where we do get to have an in-person discussion, and opportunities for socializing, and obviously the online platforms are not going away. In fact, if you look at the stock prices of some of these online platforms, they're just zooming out there. So this is here to stay, and no doubt about it. But it's just that I think we need to have that hybrid approach. And then the other thing I foresee things improving is in the augmented and the virtual reality world. Now, I mean, we and Sativa have been working on the augmented reality platform where we can have obviously the maintenance done of equipment in a much more proactive manner, just by having that augmented reality headset, and looking at an asset, and you know exactly what needs to be done, and then an expert is available remotely if required. So those kind of things are progressing very nicely. Robotics are being introduced in general as well for some of the applications that could be as simple as dusting, for example, the equipment. And so I think we're going to be looking at an uplift in the human development here altogether as we get out of this, because the culture that has been created, this is going to continue to inspire the generation to come. And I think we're going to be looking at some major developments that are going to be for the betterment of everything we're doing. So yeah, thank you, Philip.
Excellent. Great, great thoughts on the different changes, again, that each of the different industries in which we're operating and interacting with will be changed. That kind of leads me into my next thought, specifically what Harry had mentioned in terms of the change in the makeup of the workforce. What do you think the human impact of this digital revolution will be? There's a lot of talk here in the U.S. about how the workforce is aging, specifically within oil and gas. And it's always known that the younger generation typically is much more eager to adopt new technology, but the older generation, has the most practical experience that needs to be transitioned to the younger generation. So I'd like to at first ask Mr. Dawood what he thinks. What do you think the human impact of this digital revolution will be on transitioning from the generation that's the experts and has 30 years of experience to the people just coming from the universities?
Yes, Philip. I think we already passed these steps. Now, almost all the generation here in Saudi Aramco, they are accepting the new technologies as it comes. And they are accepting this for the cyber security requirements and remote monitoring from distance. All these type of technologies came for like a decade now. So even the old generation of Aramco workers, they are accepting this all this type of change in their work life. Yes, Philip. Back to you, Philip.
Thank you. Tahir, what do you think the human impact is on the different generations?
Yeah, I think as I was mentioning earlier, I think the cultural transformation and the enablement of greater wisdom that's now available um, to the new generation. I think this is going to definitely transform us in general. Now, I think the challenge really would be, how do we sustain what we started here? Yes, there's already discussions of fatigue, vocal fatigue, for example. The teachers and students in school, for example, they're going through this right now, and there are studies being done around how sustainable is remote schooling as the new normal. And the results are a bit disappointing, because it's not going to be sustainable. And if it's not sustainable at that level, we have to understand that we are going to have similar implications in our professional circles as well. There are going to be certain limitations. Now, so impact on the human in general, I would say it is expected to be positive, but we have to look at the socio, psychological development as well. We may limit ourselves for some of the interactions that we would typically have in face to face. Our body language, for example. We as humans understand the person next to us once we have that eye contact, and then the body movement, the body the gestures. So this is not possible unless the remote conferencing takes place in a different dimension, possibly virtual, 3D, so, or have holograms created in front of us. So that could be, you never know, that could be the next step as an evolution of this whole system, because I'm sure these remote conferencing software vendors, they are thinking about those. I mean, they already have the ability, for example, to have certain visual effects projected on the screen. You can do a lot of that right now, but that's still not enough as we progress further. So I think from a human development, from a skills perspective, there are definitely advantages, but at the same time, I think we have to be aware and we need to research into this space as to what are some of the long-term negatives associated with doing what we're doing right now, because there has to be some kind of a psychological effect on us with this long term, and exactly what it is. There are studies being done around that. But it's an interesting area to look at. From a professional circle, I would say I think we're already there. We've gone beyond that right now, as Mr. Dawood was saying. Within this region in general, we are progressive overall. We'll look forward to the new technologies. We embrace it the moment the technology is ready for consumption. So all those things are happening. So embracing new ideas, embracing the benefits of technology. I think in this region, in this part of the world overall, we are amongst the leading adopters, if not at the very top. So there's funding available in general. Budgets are allocated to upgrade and to move on to the newer capabilities. And I can attest to that personally, because we were doing cybersecurity at a time where the vendors were telling us you don't even need that. We actually had to transform the mindset of the vendors. So and the vendor community were telling us, just to give an example, that you don't need to do network segmentation by using firewalls, as a very rudimentary example. For them, it was just have VLANs, which is a mechanism to separate the network switching traffic, and that was it. I mean, they were happy with that. But now that we have the capability to inspect exactly what's going through the IT/OT domain, we're able to intercept and we're able to stop certain threats, because we have the capability to go up to the payload level, which is essentially, if you look at the traffic between two networks, you can look at it at the network level, or you could go all the way to the application payload. What exactly is contained? This is where you have instructions for the protocol itself. So if you're using, for example, DNP3, or you're using the IEC 104, exactly what are the contents, and you're able to inspect that and allow only the content that is essential for operational purposes. Now, we were told you don't need that because it's trusted environment. You're part of the same organization, right? Now we can tell them, we have that capability. So even if we have people that are operating equipment, laptops or their PCs or their mobile phones, we have the ability to allow what is essential and then block everything else. So the vendor community, the mindset itself, we had to overcome that. And interestingly, now as a result of that effort, now the vendors are coming to us and trying to sell us more gear. Obviously, that is one of the side effects of that. But that's the reality. That's the reality. So I think we've all gone through a change here, and I think the human impact is going to be long-standing moving forward. And I think we should still, be, as humans, we should still be open to and absorbing some of the criticism and some of the feedback we get, so we can learn how to do things better. So I think one of the advantages that has happened in our case is now we have direct access to the management. We have direct access to the decision makers, whereas previously we had to go through the hierarchy. So now you have a platform that allows you to communicate with anybody in the organization, and you can simply select their name and initiate a voice call or a video call. So so we got to look at it from that perspective. Now this opens up a whole new dimension of opportunities. So we have to take advantage of that, and at the same time, the stakeholders within the organization have to be cognizant of this fact that there has been a change. This change is here to stay. Now, so instead of trying to undo or roll back, we should or resist in general, we should look at how we can improve upon what we have started. And I think this is where the success depends on how the stakeholders come together and work with a common mindset to take those next steps in our development, really, overall. Thank you.
Excellent, for sure. You're right. Development, continued development, and like I say, it's very interesting that the cybersecurity, of course, the vendors found ways to sell more. That's their job, right? Ahmed, what do you think the human impact will be?
Yeah, I think my colleagues mostly they mentioned the main impacts, but I'm just going to look at it from different angle. Probably still as we transitioning and since the installations at site, mainly hybrid. So we don't have that intelligence as such. So we still need the experienced people. So experienced people are very, very crucial, and they are the ones who are giving the insight in order to give this technology applicable and evaluation. Yeah, so they are mainly they're like they're very support mechanism to reach this level. But if you see the new generations, they get everything in an object-oriented sort of easy language. They just need to push some buttons and see. I'm sorry if you're simplifying it, but of course they need to understand. But still, we are transitioning. The management of change has to be there in the sense we should keep our experienced people and probably get them along, because if we don't have that proper management of change, convincing the source of I would say the information, the experience, because there has our older generation have seen a lot of errors, a lot of improvements in the system, and they know it better, especially with the legacy systems that we cannot just rely on the remote and the simple sensors that they get us all the information. Yeah, so that's to be honest, it's an integration, and if you are not as mentioned by Tahir, there will be a psychological part of it. So we need to keep that in mind, that these experience they will never go away as a revolutionary or as an advert. I mean, the new technology that they are really making it easy for the a new generation to advance over the experienced team. So that still goes hand in hand, but eventually the impact is I think global in terms of psychological, in terms of health, in terms of a lot of things. So we've been here maybe talking, we were sitting for quite some long time. So there is a lot of aspect to the technology, to be honest, health, mental, educational, so, and the feel and look and the sense of security as well. So there's a lot of things behind that. Professionally, of course, experienced people, they should be there as long as they are supporting, because they should be guiding us. They should be saying whether that is moving in the right direction or not. Of course, where they're limited, probably understanding on this technical aspect. So yeah, the impact will be there if it's managed. I think the result will be tremendous, as we already seeing these results in terms of efficiency, cost cutting, and so forth. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. I know cost is come up quite a bit. Harry, what do you think the human impact will be?
Hi, Philip. Yeah, so you alluded just now to what's been happening in the past about the big crew change, the huge workforce, experienced workforce retiring. I think one of the things with this new technology is that the youngsters will embrace it easily. If you look at what's happening now, the schools are going online, the universities are going online. For them, when these youngsters come into the workforce, this is all normal technology for them. But again, what Mr. Ahmed was also talking about is, yeah, at the end of the day, you still need that experience. How do you interpret the data? What does it tell you? So one of the good advantages of this technology is that you probably would need less experienced people because they'll be accessible to the different groups via the online platform. In the past, it used to be, you need to fly somebody out to some remote location for him to diagnose and troubleshoot and get things working, or you have to fly into the OEM office to do something. So now all that will stop with this remote platform. It'll be much more easier for the younger generation to pick up from the experienced people. But I also like to allude to what Tahir was saying. At the end of the day, so what gets me a bit worried is that, yeah, the youngsters are doing everything on online platform. So where is their social interaction skills? Will they still be able to maintain the social interaction skills? Because even now, if you go for the online meeting, especially when you're having a discussion on technical matters, people have different opinions. At the end of the day, you got to meet them and say, yeah, what is your view? A face-to-face discussion eventually would be needed at some point of time as well. So that social interaction ability is also important. Not everything, I mean, it looks fine on paper that everything is done remotely, but at the end of the day, you still need a social interaction to get things done, especially difficult things where difficult decisions are required. People don't want to take risks because they're not seeing the stuff. So you still need to have a face-to-face discussion, explain. So how do you do that interaction, social skills? That is still very important. In addition to, obviously, the years of experience. So about the years of experience, again, with the online platform, it's easy to get access. Even with OEMs, you don't need OEMs now coming on site. So even with the younger generation, they will have the platform, they will have all the infrastructure for them to gain access to the experienced people. So I think it'll be a challenge for the youngsters in terms of social skills, but in terms of technology, it's very easy for them to adapt. So I think that's how the future is going to be. We still need that experienced people, but the accessibility is there on the online platform.
For sure, I agree. The social skills are very important. I'm going to switch over to, we've had a couple questions from the audience, so I'm kind of going to open it up for anybody who wants to address the issue. Specifically, it sounds like there's some interest in terms of budgets. You know, there's talking about the question about sometimes the older generation looks down at the younger generation, especially when it comes to digital revolution, but the older generation are the ones that make the decisions on the budget. So how do, you know, I guess, and then another question regarded to how do you make a business case for digital revolution? Will the way you make the business case change for budgets for these types of projects? So I'm going to open it up for anybody who wants to talk related specifically to digitalization projects and the budget and how you think going about them will be possible or increased for better or for worse.
I can jump in from the operational point of view. I think budget at the end of the day, it's all about business sense. But we are operating a business. So whatever budget you request for sky as long as it delivers value for money. So there was the fundamentals of return on investment and delivering value has not changed. What's happened now is that with the digital revolution or the digital requirements, you need the budget to get things done. You don't have a choice. So if you can make that case, I think the management will accept it, deliver value to the organization. So that's my take on the budget to the company, to the business. Budget should not be a problem. Over to you, Philip.
Anyone else want to talk about budget and how
yeah. I think I might just add something to what Harry mentioned. Of course, technology now, if as a management looking forward with this probably the escalation of I don't know, stability as well. So I think this technology, the selling point for this technology is the capital expenditure. So the expenses are less, and probably as to do, for instance, cabling. So we are going for instance, wireless and Wi-Fi, all this remote things, and also people operating cost in terms of so there is an obvious cost element to that. However, I think the other take is the other selling point is I would say the security. Probably that is some enabler has to be there. Also cybersecurity, which I think has to be hand in hand. But sustainability, to be honest, if we hadn't had these technologies, we wouldn't sustain probably the business as is now in this era of COVID. And if the lines are cut, and if things are not possible to meet in person and to exchange ideas to do that work. So, and also the backup, getting analysis. There's a lot of merits in this technology, to be honest. There is a lot of selling point where I think the companies and management there are really keen to adapt because of future benefits. But of course, they should look into the technical cost of ownership and the full life cycle of such technology. Because if I would invest an X amount of money, and after 3 or 4 years, this will be replaced by another technology, and I need to maintain that. I need to change a lot of parts in this technology. I think that's also needs to be really looked into that aspect. To answer, of course, the leadership are very, I think, very vigilant. I think they understand different aspects of these technologies, and they will have to ask the right questions where that cost is driven from. It's not like just go and buy this technology. Because a lot of offerings are there. Yeah, thank you. That's my point.
Excellent. Tahir or Dawood, do you have any comments on budgets?
I think for us, I'll say a few words on that. I think for us, budgets will substantially be reduced as a result of this, because we're already demonstrating cost savings. And it's an interesting phenomena now that the cost saving is not just in the CapEx, but also in the OpEx. And this is going to cascade down to human resource management as well. And I think Mr. Hari touched upon this earlier. We may identify people that are no longer required potentially. So there will be a lot of redundancies. And so overall, this is going to, from an organizational perspective, it's going to positively have an impact on budgets. There are also opportunities in our case where we had to channel some of the allocated budgets towards driving some of these digital transformation initiatives, and to demonstrate that channeling or redirection of those budgets is actually going to result in additional cost savings 3 to 4 years down the line. So it's an interesting discussion we keep having with our finance and our contracts department, because the new normal is you got to now have additional justification for why you have to spend. And there's greater scrutiny, which is healthy, in my opinion, which is very healthy for an organization. So there's greater level of awareness as to where that money is being spent. And this whole change that has taken place, and the advent of digital transformation, there is greater transparency in the overall process. And I foresee personally this to continue, this trend of demonstrating greater optimization, greater cost saving, lean processes, and the ability to work with resources that can be demonstratively utilized effectively, because it's not just about the cost here. We are looking at the complete spectrum of things here: resource optimization, the resource utilization, resources that are the cost barriers, for example. So those kind of details can be identified as well. So all of this cascades down to the bottom line, which is this is our capex for this year, this is our opex, and that number, I think, will have to be now demonstratively reduced year on year, unless there are projects that are effectively going to reduce that further down the line. So it's an interesting time we are in right now, and what impact, I think we have to also look at what impact does it have on the greater macro indicators here. Will that have an effect on the overall marketplace, the economy of a country itself? It may not. I think this is something which will vary from one nation to the other. But what we foresee at our level is this is going to optimize, and it is going to definitely be a step up in the right direction. And I think this is the knowledge economy being realized. I think this is the true colors of a knowledge-based economy. We have to demonstrate our resources are delivering, and if they're not delivering, there will be an impact, or there will be a motivation for them to deliver. And let's all get together and work towards the optimization of our processes within the organization. So it's an interesting time, I would say, we're in. Thank you, Philip.
For sure. Also, we have a couple other questions. One specifically related to how has emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or machine learning helped speeding up the process of digital transformation in your organization? Do you know of any specific examples where AI or machine learning is being actively used on projects that you're involved within? Dawood, do you know how Saudi Aramco is using artificial intelligence and machine learning? Well, we'll go ahead and switch over. Ahmed, how do you know of any ways that artificial intelligence or machine learning is being used?
Well, in PDO, of course, with my limited knowledge to the where I am operating and working, definitely there are a lot of work in different areas, like well engineering. We have in the geomatics, they are using a lot of drones with the different algorithms and all that. That's right. I think that they're really doing well. But I'm not very knowledgeable about the exact. But I would say in my area where I'm coming in contact with is that we have used a lot of these RPAs, robotic process automation, where we felt that is really, really helpful. I can give you an example, and they can share it with the team if there's any question on that, more details. So we have a digital team, digital transformation team in PDO. And that digital transformation team is really looking at different departments. We have engineering, operation, well control, and all that, well engineering, and so on. Yeah, for engineering, we have a very nice experience. For instance, the one I was involved and I was championing, that is alarm missionalization. So if you guys been familiar with alarms variable table, sometimes you have thousands and thousands of rows, and literally you can just, it's very, very difficult for a person to fill in all this information, and that's a very simple one. Yeah, so that has successfully given to being coded for in a robotic with a certain logic that we give them, and just getting the DNR, the system dump to the, and there will be like a file, input file, and the robot will do all this, all the input to the variable table, and that will be ready for rationalization. And after we do the rationalization, we get that system dump back again. It will be doing the checking for us, and it will send out the mismatch report to the vendor. So there's a very simple, however, it's really, really helpful to us, because usually alarm rationalization is part of system, system handover, and usually we are not allowed really to go to the operation phase unless we get that system dump and all this variable table being approved, that there is no issues to overwhelm the operator with alarms. This is a simple thing, and there is a lot of ideas on the same way of using robotic process automation. Of course, different departments, they are using based on the, so I remember also we have in the warehouse, and I just recall that they use their robot to tidy up and make sure that the things are really stored where they are. And making sure that when there is an order, it will go to the right stored, right section, and help the storekeeper and the guy who's looking after the inventory. So there's a lot of nice examples, but I could only mention the one that I was involved with. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, good. Yeah, that's. I'm very interested in specific things. I know we have some initiatives going on with AI and ML, but I'm not directly involved with them. Does anyone else have any specific uses that machine learning or AI that you know of is being used?
Well, we are using that for cybersecurity. In our case, the cybersecurity controls that we have full visibility over everything that's going on in the substation. So this is where you have the IEDs communicating with the station gateways, and the activities that are being performed on the HMIs. So there's full visibility. Now, this level of visibility is actually seen as a business advantage. Because now we're able to not just view some of the low-level communication that takes place, but also the operational communications. So operationally, obviously, that is useful at a SCADA level. Because then you have the ability to identify, for example, defective hardware or imminent failures. So this effectively supports the predictive maintenance initiative. Now, from a cybersecurity perspective, we're able to tell, for example, if one of the contractors plugged in their equipment where they were not supposed to, and then distinguish between an authorized versus an unauthorized operation by using the machine learning capabilities. And it's an interesting area. I mean, I can talk about this for quite a bit. But in general, what that has benefited us in, we're now able to provide that assurance to our management, the stakeholders, that we know what's going on in the substation. So we have remote eyes over any potential disruptive event which could lead to a SCADA alarm, for example. So we're trying to be now proactive in what we do by minimizing the alarms for operations and by means of identifying potential events that could trigger an alarm and controlling that by means of coordination with the operational teams. So cybersecurity is not just locking out the bad guys or ensuring people are doing things the way they're supposed to, or enforcing regulations. It's enablement of operational functions and being that key stakeholder to support some of those activities. In fact, some of the vendors utilize our cybersecurity tools to diagnose some of the operational functions. So it's like it's a mutual win-win. So that's the kind of culture that's been created, and at the heart of our cybersecurity solution is an AI-enabled system that's constantly monitoring everything that's going on and then triggering anomalies, and then based on the supervised learning, it is able to adapt to the new normal based on human intervention as well. So it's not exactly 100% autonomous system. There is definitely that human supervision that's involved to train that, and we found that that hybrid approach is better suited in our application, in our use case. And there are solutions out there, obviously, that operate completely autonomously, self-learning, using the deep learning algorithms, and it works in certain industries. But in our case, the hybrid approach works better and allows us to be in control rather than having not just one set of SCADA alarms, but another set of cybersecurity alarms that we have to now deal with. So it works best for us that way. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we've run over a few minutes, but I think we've had some very good questions and some very good discussion. And I'd like to thank each of the panelists for taking the time to join this and provide your input and your experience in terms of the digital revolution and specifically the impact COVID has had and the different areas in which it changes. So at this time, I'd like to thank you and turn it back to the host.
Thank you so much, Philip. For taking the session. In the way it was very professional. We had some very good conversations, discussions across, and very good insights from all the panelists. In fact, as we say, the panel discussion is basically a platform where you interact, you engage, where we come out with a certain solution for a particular problem. And I think Mr. Tahir, Saleem, and Mr. Ahmed have actually addressed a couple of those problems here. And Mr. Hari as well, thank you so much for joining. It was quite an engaging session from you as well, putting in some thoughts from your past experience. And Mr. Dawood as well, thank you so much for joining, sir. We were able to get some good insights from ARAMCO, how they're actually doing things as well. And all said and done, I think this was a very fruitful session, and we look forward to working with everyone in the near future. And I would call it a day for now. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.